Stop resisting!
Stop resisting!
Hello my freedom-loving family. This is another video from space. Remember, if you don't stand up for your rights, you don't have any rights at all.
Ain't nobody dumber than y'all. Ain't nobody dumber than y'all. I guess you love to be wrong. You don't have the touch of the ball.
Steve Leto.
I had a lot of people send me this story, and believe it or not, when I first saw it, I thought it might not be true. I actually waited till it got picked up by other news organizations before I was going to go with the story. And the reason is this is such an outrageous story. In the 9 years I've been doing my shows here on YouTube, this is up there as one of the wildest and craziest stories. And I'm still kind of at a loss for words on this one, but I will actually probably be doing a little bit of a longer video here, and you'll understand why. The headline from The Guardian newspaper, the headline, police raid local Kansas newspaper office and homes of reporters. So the police in Kansas.
Heil Hitler. My name is Colonel Hans Müller of the SAS. As you know, we were combing the area for Jews, but it has come to our attention.
Raided the newspaper office and the homes of reporters. And they didn't just walk in and say hello and walk out. Oh no. So Michael Sonato wrote this. Local police in Marion, Kansas conducted a raid on the offices of a local newspaper, as well as the homes of the publishers and reporters. The owner and publisher of the Marion County Record told the Kansas Reflector that the city's entire 5-officer police force and 2 sheriff's deputies conducted the raid, which included the seizure of computers, cell phones, and reporting materials. So if you were...
While a lot of people out there do the whole back the blue, I'll support police no matter what, that's not what we do here. The only thing that we support here, absolute, is the Second Amendment. And I believe that everyone should be held accountable, even if you support them.
For a reporter for this newspaper, they would come to your house and take your stuff, including your computers and your cell phones. Now, it might be the computers came from the office of the newspaper, cell phones came from the reporters, but the point is, if you came and took my cell phone, I'd be a little bothered by that.
You mind if we ask you a quick question?
Sure, go ahead. What you got?
We're doing a survey and we're asking people, what would you do if somebody broke into your house with the intentions to rob and harm your family?
Oh, I'd call 811.
811? You mean 911?
No, 811, because I'm going to need to know where to dig a hole.
So the publisher said the raid and seizure stemmed from a confidential source leaking sensitive documents to the newspaper. And of course, he criticized the seizure, comparing it to seizures conducted by repressive government regimes. Last week, a local restaurant proprietor had police remove the Marion County Record reporters from an open forum held by the U.S. Congressman Jake LaTurner. The congressman's staff apologized as they had invited the press. So according to the publisher, a confidential source leaked evidence that someone had been convicted of drunk driving and continued using their vehicles without a license. But the paper never published anything related to it, as they suspected the source may have been relaying information that came from divorce proceedings, and they wanted to track down exactly where it came from, and they hadn't reported it yet. The Kansas Reflector reported that, here's the quote, police notified Newell, who then complained at a city council meeting, that the newspaper had illegally obtained and disseminated sensitive documents, which isn't true.
I think somebody's living in the land of make-believe. When you lie, it makes me mad. I think these youngsters could use some guidance.
All right, come on, come with me, embarrassing Mr. Rogers. You should be ashamed of yourself. This man is a national treasure. Thanks a lot, I'll take care of it. All right, everybody into the car. Come on, no more of this.
Continues to push for answers after police raided the small-town newspaper, the Marion County Record, over what law enforcement called identity theft in a search warrant.
Well, yesterday we introduced you to the paper's co-owner and publisher, who tells us he believes police crossed the line.
Bullies will be bullies. And this was an attempt to harass and bully us. Check out the big brain on Brad. You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
Tuesday morning, after not returning our calls and emails to request an interview, our I-team showed up at Marion Police Department to ask Chief Gideon Cody a few questions. As we tried to get answers from the man behind the badge who's behind the raid, the newspaper's attorney, Bernie Rhodes, came to help the paper get published and stopped to pay his respects to co-publisher Joanne Meyer, the 98-year-old who died one day after her home was also raided.
This may be the grossest violation of the right of free speech that I've ever seen. It is the ultimate act of a local tyrant preventing the local newspaper from exposing the truth.
I respectfully protest our arrest. We were only following orders, nothing more. As a fellow soldier, surely you must understand.
Now you're no longer a soldier. You are all war criminals. All of you. Lock them up. These Nazi bastards.
We spoke with the owner of the record, Eric Meyer, on Monday. He tells us it all started with a tip about a restaurant owner's driving record. A tip one of his reporters used a state website to look into by verifying the owner's identity. But instead of publishing, they called Marion police.
What'd they say?
Nothing. They said a week later they showed up at our door and seized our computers.
Says no one committed a crime, but there's more here to know about Chief Cody. It's important to note the newspaper staff was looking into tips about Chief Cody's time as a captain in Kansas City, but never published a story.
I think any reasonable viewer would wonder why he was so personally interested that he had to make a 98-year-old woman sit there for hours while he searched her son's business so he could personally search her home.
A mile away, back at police headquarters, before saying anything, Chief Cody told our team to contact Kansas Bureau of Investigations.
But KBI says that they weren't the one who issued the warrant. So can you tell me why, instead of issuing a subpoena,
you realize how
raided
mad KBI will be angry at me if I start talking about their case at this point?
Their case.
Can he spell hypocrisy? This was his affidavit, his investigation, and his search. He drove to the house to personally search the house of a 98-year-old woman who had nothing possibly to do with this. A woman who died the next day.
The chief's name is on the affidavit seeking the warrant. Over the weekend, Rhodes sent a scathing letter to Chief Cody demanding no one view the seized items.
The Kansas Bureau of Investigations has launched a probe into last week's police raid on the newsroom of a local newspaper and the home of its publisher and co-owner, Eric Meyer. Tuesday, I spoke to Sherman Smith, editor-in-chief of the Kansas Reflector, a nonprofit news outlet. He described speaking to Joanne Meyer on the phone as the police raid on her home was taking place.
The first call that I made Friday when I found out that this raid had occurred was to the home of the publisher and his 98-year-old mother. She answered the phone actually when I called, but she was very upset. There was a lot of noise around her. Police were rummaging through her house. She was having trouble hearing me, and so she told me she was going to have somebody standing near her and talk to me and let her know what I was trying to say. And then I heard a voice come on the line that says, I'm Sergeant so-and-so, and he had no interest in talking to me when he found out that I was a reporter. Somebody contacted the paper and said, I have some information that might be of interest about Carrie Newell. And this confidential source provided information about her driver's license history, a 2008 conviction for drunken driving, which was of interest because she was applying for a liquor license. And there was a question about whether this should preclude her from getting a liquor license. A reporter at the paper then typed Carrie Newell's date of birth and driver's license number into a state database to verify the information they were given. Did verify the information, but ultimately decided this wasn't newsworthy in part because they felt like they were being used as some sort of a pawn in divorce proceedings between Carrie and her husband. So they decided not to publish, but they did notify police that they had received this information. The police chief then notified Carrie Newell that they had this information. Carrie became upset. She made some allegations at a city council meeting last Monday that accused the reporters of some sort of illegal activity. That became the basis for an alleged crime here.
I think somebody's living in the land of make-believe. When you lie, it makes me mad. I think these youngsters could use some guidance.
All right, come on, come with me, embarrassing Mr. Rogers. You should be ashamed of yourself. This man is a national treasure. Thanks a lot, I'll take care of it. All right, everybody into the cars. Come on, come on, no more of this.
Eric Meyer, the head of the paper, why did he call the police to say he's not doing this story, but he had this information?
He told me that he was concerned the newspaper was being set up, and so he thought police should have that information. And that then became the basis for the search warrant that was executed against them on Friday, that's alleging a crime of identity theft and improper use of a computer.
And can you explain what happened to the reporter? The police chief himself ripped the phone out of her hand, injuring her finger?
That's right. That's what the publisher, Eric Meyer, told me.
The defense's claim that she wasn't lawfully performing her duties prior to the attack.
A jury has found Ari Young not guilty of both attempted murder and assault with a firearm on a peace officer.
Because people are getting fed up with it, and you are putting yourselves in extreme danger when you unlawfully attack people. As people are starting to get so fed up with it, more and more and more people are going to start defending themselves against you, and they are going to be acquitted.
And the police chief ripped the phone out of reporter Deb Groover's hand and apparently injured her fingers in some way.
And can you explain the second story that the paper was investigating about the police chief himself, Sherman Smith?
When I talked to Eric on Friday, he told me that when the city had hired the police chief, the newspaper received a couple of emails from people who alleged some misconduct at his previous job.
It's time now for a full look at your forecast with Astrid. Maybe we can canoodle before you get into it about,
We're not going to be canoodling. What?
Oh, I thought canoodle meant chat. Astrid, you're lucky there's a producer in my ear. I would have carried that on and on.
I believe he was a captain with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. But the publisher told me Friday that the individuals who emailed them were not willing to put their name to the information and could provide no evidence to support it. They asked the police chief about these allegations. So he was aware that they had received this information, but the publisher, when I talked to him Friday, said he didn't believe it was a credible story because there was no evidence to support these allegations. And so, it's hard to say. I know he subsequently has told others that he believes this was possibly a motivation for the raid. Magistrates, they're really not any qualifications. They don't even have to be an attorney. In this case, Laura VR is an attorney with an active license, former county attorney in the county over. Was the magistrate judge. I talked to her assistant Friday and asked if there could be some explanation for why the judge would sign what appears to be an unlawful search and seizure warrant, but didn't get any response back.
Is there anything you want to share with us? Share? I'm the head of an evil organization. I don't share, okay?
We're eagerly awaiting the release of the probable cause affidavit that would have supported the search warrant to try to understand, why any judge of any qualification or not would have signed off on this. The chilling effect because we depend on confidential sources to let us know what's going on and to give us information, and they have to know that we're not going to talk about them and we're not going to give their identity or disclose anything that would put them in jeopardy to anybody else. If the police in Marion County are allowed to get away with this, it becomes open season on journalists everywhere in Kansas. He has posted on the department's Facebook page He says he believes the justice system will be vindicated when all the facts come out.
11 points have been
He and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation director, Tony Mativi, both of them have issued statements saying that the media is not above the law, which I just interpret as gaslighting, because nobody has suggested that the media is above the law. The reporter and the newspaper have been forthcoming about their actions. The question here is whether police can act outside the law.
And the city council?
The city council's next meeting will be Monday afternoon, evening, and we should get some clarity then.
Could they decide whether he remains the police chief?
They certainly have the power to hire and fire the police chief, but nobody has said anything yet to suggest that that'll be on the agenda.
I understand visitation for Joan Meyer will be held on Friday. A funeral service and burial will be held on Saturday. I think it sounds like, from the level of her stress as this was taking place, not only at the office, but at her home, that she saw this as the beginning of the demise of journalism. Is that fair to say, Sherman?
I think we can say that it's a tragedy that somebody who had spent her whole life practically supporting news and intimately involved with the local newspaper, and the owner of the paper spent the last 24 hours of her life having her home raided by police in a apparently illegal and certainly undemocratic attack on the free press. She wondered where the good people are supposed to be at right now. It's just a tragedy that that's how her life ended. Involved with the local newspaper, and the owner of the paper spent the last 24 hours of her life having her home raided by police in a apparently illegal and certainly undemocratic attack on the free press. She wondered where the good people are supposed to be at right now. It's just a tragedy that that's how her life ended. Involved with the local newspaper, and the owner of the paper spent the last 24 hours of her life having her home raided by police in a apparently illegal and certainly undemocratic attack.
Why is America not the greatest country in the world, Professor? That's my answer. You're saying yes. You, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one.
Did you have to act so mean? Don't you know you're a human being?
You have chosen to be the enforcement mechanism for the law. You have sold your soul for a paycheck.